Joining me today is Robert Schena. He is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Rajant Corporation, and he's involved in quite a few things in the technology area. However, what I want to focus on with him today is how he is going to use technology and hopes to use technology to combine AI with digital tools. In other words, to try to improve care for people who are outside of the hospital walls and to monitor their health care all the time, not just at select moments of time when they go into the doctor's office. During COVID, we started doing more telehealth and finding tools to expand telehealth. And that clearly showed us that, yes, in your remote locations, you now can reach people who probably never could have been reached before.
And COVID is exactly how we kind of stumbled our way into the healthcare side of things. I was at the time, it's early 2020, trying to think about how we and I could apply artificial intelligence capability to make our radio technology function better, how to route data more smartly and make sure that in difficult environments that you could find a way for data to get where it needs to go. And you mentioned hospitals there. Hospitals are extraordinarily challenging environments for wireless communications. There are many, many different devices broadcasting simultaneously in the hospital. I look around hospitals and there's Wi-Fi access points way more than they need in the hospitals, and so those are challenging environments. And as I was thinking about how to apply artificial intelligence to what Rajant was doing in our core business, I ran across a technology out of Princeton University. It was an application of AI for various things. And one of the things they were doing is they were using artificial intelligence that had been trained in what's called a neural network that was installed in a smartphone as an application. And then a wearable device was generating biometric data on patients and sending the data into the smartphone. And this wearable had been trained, this neural networking technology combined with the wearable had been trained to recognize 4 different diseases or illnesses from biometric data from the wearable. And those 4 diseases were depression, bipolar disease, schizophrenia, and I think diabetes. And this, it's kind of part and parcel of the discussions I was having over at this university. And they mentioned they had a startup based in Brooklyn that was trying to further develop how to use artificial intelligence to diagnose illnesses from wearable data. And I had the opportunity to go visit that little startup. This was probably a month or so before the COVID shutdown, but there was a lot of kind of noise in the air about shutdowns and things like that. And so in talking to this engineering team, I posed a question to them. It's a startup, 5 or 6 people. And I said, do you think it's possible to train a neural network application to read data from a wearable, or better, if possible, the sensors, because there are many sensors in your cell phone as well? Would it be possible to train a neural network to recognize COVID with a high degree of accuracy using biometric data? So we posed this to this small startup team, and of course they gave the only answer that a startup team ever gives when you ask them if they, can they do something? They were like, oh, absolutely, of course we could do that. And I'm like, well, what would it take to do that? And they said, well, we'd have to have a clinical trial, maybe 100 participants, probably 70 people or so that had COVID in various stages. They would need them to wear a wearable for an hour, lay still for an hour, and gather all the data, all of the sensor data coming off this particular device, and then use that to train the neural network to see whether or not it could recognize COVID. And this particular system that we had purchased and we were using, it was the data from the from the wearable had to reach your smartphone, and it was only a couple feet away, but there was enough interference in the air that signal would often be dropped. And when the signal was dropped, this particular system lost all the data, which was very frustrating to the patient, very frustrating to the doctors, which were helping. And then once it got to the smartphone, the system also required the smartphone to continuously be connected by wirelessly to the internet, to a Wi-Fi router or through the cell phone network. And if that signal was dropped, the data was lost because it was a cloud-based application. So we learned a lot. We learned how difficult it is for wireless communications, for cell phones to work in a hospital, for Wi-Fi connections to be reliable in a hospital, for Bluetooth connections. And basically, as clever as the wearable device was, the kind of the sand in the gears of the clinical trial was actually the assumption on everybody involved that communications are easy and that they're reliable and networks are up all the time, none of which is true. However, we also found other things. As we investigated this, we found that the particular wearable we were wearing, and wearables in general, don't currently generate really accurate medical grade information. That the sensors tend to trim the data, the devices trim the data. They take out high signal, they take out low signal, because the manufacturers are really worried more about extending the life of the battery than they are about accuracy of the data. And therefore they sacrifice data accuracy for battery life extension. And therefore the devices themselves, while interesting from a heart rate perspective or a temperature perspective, and there's several, blood oxygen perspective, they're not sampling very often. And when they do sample, they send the data, and sometimes it gets through and sometimes it doesn't. And so for reasons unrelated to medical analytics, the vast majority of the manufacturers today are focused less on accuracy than they are on kind of the directionality of information. So I can tell you today that you can be wearing, and I won't name, these are well-known manufacturers and the most popular. You can be wearing a wearable device and it'll be taking your heart rate, and then you can take it off and set it on your desk, and it'll continue to take the heart rate of your desk. My desk, while very nice, it lacks a heart at the moment, but you could still.
How about Flat Bob behind you?
Flat Bob, he has more of a heart than I do, according to my staff. While I was on a long trip, I found out that people came in and Flat Bob gave out 3 raises to people while I was gone. And I thought that was a little too generous. So my staff created him, and often prefers his presence than mine. And so on this wearable stuff, we spent a lot of time, in figuring out how these things work. Another thing we found out is, in addition to the data being trimmed, often the data is just flat out wrong. There's a lot of error introduced by motion into the sensor data. So you often have inaccurate data. That's, I suppose it's probably a good thing that they don't send the data along very often. So there was room for tremendous improvement in what's possible. And so I actually created a company called Rajant Health, with probably the crazy idea that since we build very sophisticated electronic devices at Rajant, I thought, I think we could do better. So we've spent a lot of time and effort and really made a lot of progress over the last few years with creating a system and a device that streams accurate raw data continuously and addresses other issues. We've made a lot of progress in reducing error caused by motion. There's another error that's a problem and challenge that's not well appreciated, but most of the devices on the market today struggle when there's changes in skin color from one wearer to the next. The darker the skin tone, the more prone the optics involved in the sensors are to error. If you go from a room that's dark outside into bright sunlight, just the changes in ambient light can significantly reduce the quality of the data. There's a lot of subtle issues that have to be addressed in order for this stuff to become really usable for medical purposes. And we've addressed a lot of these things over the last couple of years, and here's what's going to happen. I mean, most of the world doesn't have anywhere near the expensive healthcare system that the U.S. has. Major 4 or 5 major medical centers in Philly and in New York and Chicago, and I mean vast investments in large medical institutions. A great deal of the world just doesn't have that kind of money, and there's billions of people that don't have, if they have any access to healthcare, it's limited, and the technology is limited as well. So the quality is limited. And our own healthcare system is extremely expensive, and it's getting to be more and more of a challenge to provide high quality healthcare at a reasonable cost. And then you get into rural America, and we really have a challenge because hospitals are there's just not that many in number to begin with. Many of them are shutting down in rural locations. So we're being more and more challenged about how do we get healthcare to people at a reasonable price. And one of the things about the type of technology we're working on, and many others are working on, is that the price of wearables with very sophisticated processing technology and memory technology and sensor technology, the price is dropping dramatically in what it takes to make a device. And I really can foresee in the next 5 years that a extremely sophisticated sensor-laden device with very accurate medical grade sensors and the ability to store that data and transport that data. I mean, I literally in 5 years, I could see the cost to a manufacturer like us, or certainly much larger companies. The costs are going to be, I mean, literally $20-30 for them to make this stuff. I almost see a point where, I mean, you're going to get these in cereal boxes, like as a prize almost. The price of the device itself within a few short years will be inconsequential to the capabilities it'll have. And so we're not going to be able to continue on the extraordinary expensive path that we are today. And one of the answers will be the type of things we're working on, where sensor technology, and that was one of the bets I made when we committed our resources to do this, is that processing technology is getting so capable at such a low cost that sensors would become ubiquitous in our life, whether they're measuring toxins in the atmosphere or aspects of various parts of your body. You'll be able to have stuff wear them on your fingers, wear them around your neck, wear them on your upper arm. Some of them you can just be able to tape things on. They'll be disposable. There'll be other things you'll just be able to swallow, and they'll float around inside of you for a while. And all that data will be grabbable. For instance, a device brand new, extremely different in this device here. It streams raw data from many sensors. It actually takes data itself, because this will connect to your cell phone network. It will connect to your Wi-Fi router. It will connect to the Bluetooth connection in your smartphone. So this will find a network. You remember that I said, networks are tough to stay connected to. This will find a network one way or another. It will persist your data for a week. The data we capture all the raw data from the sensors. So 100% of the data will be available. And this device is, and I just won't say how inexpensive it is, but I'm going to tell you this: it's inexpensive now. The same capabilities in just a few short years will be $20 or $30 for us to make.
Where I think you're really hitting a big area is this communication issue and reaching people who otherwise wouldn't get care.
That's right. That's our system, and for whatever reason, and a lot of reasons got us to where we are, but it's expensive to deliver healthcare today, and it's too expensive for us, and we're the wealthiest economy on the planet. So our company, we're a global company. We do business in 85 countries. So I think the rest of the world is just never going to allocate the kind of resources we do to monitoring people's health and delivering. If you think about it, what we deliver today is really spot healthcare. Generally, you go see if you're disciplined, you go see your family physician once a year, and they come in and they'll take your temperature and they'll do the blood pressure cuff and they'll take your blood pressure. And that's information at that moment in time. And then the rest of the year, there's nothing gathered about you in the system. And so right now, our system is very, very reactive in many ways. You get sick, then you go see a doctor. And I can tell you that when I said to my team, the ability to process data, the ability to gather data, that's shortly going to extend itself to genetic information as well. And I just thought within a few short years, and maybe it's 5, there'll be enough processing and sensing capability. You'll be able to sequence your own RNA. And once you do that, you combine it with the wearable biometric data you're having, that you're going to get indications of illnesses far earlier than you do today. Right now, most of the time, you wait till you're sick, or you have with cancer or other diseases, you have to have manifested some pretty meaningful symptoms to discover those things. So in other words, you're already really sick, or some organ's already really damaged, and then you're chasing a problem. You had mentioned that device called the Cowbell, which is this device, and this is basically an extremely powerful artificial intelligence engine. And you can put this in a person's home or in a hospital. This will, if you have, let's say you have a 10 hospital or 15 hospital system, you install this in each hospital. These devices will find themselves across the internet without any administrative requirement, and it'll build one unified network. And then your artificial intelligence applications. Let's say you have the 10 hospital system, and you might have heart patients in 8 of the hospitals, and you can begin to label the data from, somebody has cardiomyopathy, and turns out you have 100 patients with that, and then you have other patients with damage caused by high blood pressure, or have aortic aneurysms. You begin to label these things, and automatically you can cross-analyze the data from all those patients across those hospitals and begin to apply data analytics techniques, artificial intelligence models across the network very easily. So the ability to gather information from patients on a continuing basis, learn early about what might be wrong with a patient before it's a tumor, or before there's major kidney failure, or before there's major liver failure. Your body's giving off genetic and biometric signals far earlier than the tools we've had to date have allowed us to recognize those signals. The biggest challenge will not be technical, nor will it be medical. The biggest challenge will be regulatory. We're going to be generating massive amounts of new information, and you'll have privacy issues. People will be very cautious, and ought to be cautious, about who they trust this level of personal healthcare detail with. And so that's certainly going to be of import to individuals and the governments associated with them.
Robert Schena, you've been very generous with your time. Robert is the founder and CEO of Ragent, and I want to thank you for not only talking about what you're doing, but your vision of the future and taking the time to talk to us on the Dr. Brian McDonough Show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Brian. You've been great. I've been watching you well, we're both still like in our teen years, so I've been watching you for just a few years.
We got lots of years left. That's right. Thanks so much, and I appreciate Flat Bob for joining us as well.
Yes, and you noticed he didn't have much to say, which is why he's so appreciated.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.